D&D is a fun gaming experience where you get to simulate yourself as somebody else and go through a whole new experience that you would never actually be able to experience. So it's quite different, using the abilities of just basic pen and paper and dice. You get to go through dungeons, explore new lands, gather treasure, many loot, so much more that you would never actually get to do, and it's even quite a different experience that you may say from a video game. We are Grayscape Gaming at 706 West Court Street, downtown Flint, across the street from the White Horse Tavern and Totem Bookstore. Here at Grayscape Gaming, we provide people with a clean, open, inclusive gaming community where we sell many D&D products, board games, Magic the Gathering, and many other TCGs. We welcome everybody with open arms and a friendly experiences, and we want everybody to play more games. So all of our play groups here, whether it's Magic, Dungeons & Dragons, Warhammer 40k, board games, and many more, are all integral parts of our community. Without them, we wouldn't be who we are today, and the great thing is that many of them will play games together, and they'll even just a mention of like, hey, we have this D&D group going on, and it can just take that one spark of something being said to have somebody new joining or a new conversation sparking, talking about a fun experience that happened in the game, and it can just bring about more people playing together, and that's our biggest focus here and why we loved creating this business and having it here, is having more people playing games, more communities to play together with, and just having a inclusive gaming space that all can be accepted at and play at.
So, I mainly like to use Roll20. You can fudge the rolls as much as you want and nobody's gonna know what's going on behind the scenes because, thankfully, I can just... For example, on the last encounter that I had for the session I was DMing, I may have added a few too many goblins in the background. I'm like, this is going to kill them. And so I just removed a few and nobody was the wiser. There are some benefits like that where I can alter the flow of things without my players inherently knowing that I'm altering the flow so that I don't kill them in the first session.
Obviously, when I started playing was in 2006, when I was in college. So that was D&D 4E, which was a very different game in some ways. I was the only woman in my group. Everyone else was dudes. Like, that was just how it was. But the community was really different. It was my experience rejoining the community in the 2020s versus when I originally did 15 years ago is night and day. I started playing again when I met my now partner because they were a GM, and they were playing in a weekly game. So I was able to kind of get back and connect back to D&D, which I hadn't since before I went to grad school. And then I started collecting dice, mass-produced dice, because that's all I knew was out there at the time. Every time I do a gradient inking, I ask myself, why don't I always do gradient inking? Because it always looks so cool. But even I recognize that it is not appropriate for every set and sometimes would distract from what's going on inside. I found out you could make dice. And for my birthday that year, my partner got me a pressure pot because it was the one piece of equipment I needed to really work with dice, because how do I put this delicately? Don't have the patience to make dice without a pressure pot, because the styles that I like to do, I do a lot of injecting resin into the center and different colors and a lot of mixing. And so there's a lot of bubbles. And if you don't have a pressure pot, those techniques just don't work. So once I started making them, I realized, oh, this is too expensive for me to do and not sell them.
These are polishing papers that a lot of dice makers use. I've shifted to hand sanding for the D6 because the surface wasn't flat enough for me and not doing what I wanted. And then I move on to a blue wet zone of paper for both of them to kind of help shine it out a little more before I move over to Dremel polishing. I can only speak for myself, but a lot of dice makers end up selling their dice because it's a very expensive hobby, so it just kind of happens. You can't justify continuing it really without selling what you make. Plus you just amass so much dice that you just can't you can't keep for yourself. The handmade versus mass production conversation is a very, very big topic in the handmade community. The quality control of the handmade product is probably the biggest thing, one of the biggest things that set factory dice aside, or I guess compared to factory dice, because factory dice, the quality control there is not nearly as a percentage as much as what you're going to get with someone who is hand making something. So that goes back to the balance question, right? If you cut open a factory die, there's going to be big bubbles in there. Those are not balanced. Whereas with the handmade product, we are so attuned to what we're making and making sure that it's as close to perfect as possible. Truly, when people say artists are their biggest critics, that is not any different for someone who is hand making something, especially selling something to people. That's one of the biggest factors, is just quality overall. We care very, very deeply about our product because it's not just something we sell, it's art, and honestly, like a very big creative outlet for all of us. Secondly, compared to something you could buy on Amazon for $12 or a factory made something, is going to be the designs. So a lot of what you see with factory dice, they can be cool, but it's not going to be anything super special. They're things that handmade dice makers can make because we're not a machine. There's that nuance that we have with our designs and the creative concepting that goes behind it and all the experimentation and all of the back end stuff that people truly don't realize. And I had a conversation with someone on TikTok about this like earlier this morning. There's just so much that goes on the back end that sets handmade artists in a different level from something that's factory made. But like, for example, I am mostly known for this fire design that I do called Firestorm, and then this Beetlejuice inspired design called It's Showtime. Something like that. Those are very, very complicated and they take a lot of time. You cannot get that with factory designs. So those are the two biggest things: quality control and just the creativity that goes into it.
Well, I'm certainly not anti-mass produced dice. I have a tarot bag full right here. In terms of how we differ, I think, my pieces are one of a kind. I very rarely, I can't recreate exactly what I do because of the styles and techniques that I use. It will never be the same twice. So that's kind of one of it, is this is a one of a kind luxury functional art piece. And the other piece of it is I look for inspiration in different things. I very rarely pour with nothing in mind. I'm either thinking of a vibe or a color palette that's inspired by something, or like with one of my recent collections, I did a set based on every song of the Midnight's album, 3 a.m. tracks and hits different included, which I never thought I would take on because I've never been a music person, but recently I've been really into music. So I said, you know what? I really love this album. I've got some images already coming to mind when I'm listening to it. Why don't I just do this? It's going to be fun. Let's try. And it was a real challenge for myself and I loved it. And I did recently a whole collection based on the quantum realm from Quantumania. Yes, the MCU. I think that's something unique too, is you're not going to get things that are based on people's experiences of another piece of art. I think that they're very evocative in a way that mass-produced dice typically aren't. And again, nothing against mass-produced dice. They are a completely different thing in my mind. Whereas this is an art piece. And it's part of why I send my dice in frames. And that's something I build into my pricing right now. That might change. But right now I send all of my dice in floating display frames because to me, they are a piece of art. I mean, and I make some very unique things. And I don't think they should only come out and see the light when you're playing.
It is easy to have overlap when people talk. Since everybody's in a voice call together, you want to be like talking to your friend, like making jokes while the main story is happening. But since everybody's on the same volume level, you can hear everybody talking about the little thing that they're talking about. So it gets muddled at times. Whereas, if you're playing around a table or something, you can like lean over to your friend and be like, just whisper to them little small things. Or the DM can, you can see physically, the DM is focusing on this group of players. Okay, the focus is there.
So I think the D&D community, in all honesty, is a really great community for the aspect of many of the players and or DMs will have wide open arms to many others, meeting new players as well, because a lot of other gaming groups will kind of stay in their small niches, their small groups, and they won't really be more inviting to others, while a lot of times in the D&D community they'll be like, hey, you're a new player or you're someone looking to join, come in, join us, come have some fun.
The D&D community, it's been mixed. I mean, I haven't personally had any negative interactions. I know it does happen because there are the more gatekeepy type people who truly lose their minds when they find out some of their favorite dice makers are women and queer women and just not white guys. So it's interesting when those interactions happen, but they're so few and far between that unless something truly insane happened, I would say it's just been positive.
The dice maker community has been really wonderful. I've made such amazing friends, and I've really not run into like the competitive nature that I've run into in other communities that I've been a part of in the past, especially around art and a business and any of those things. We're very supportive of each other. Obviously, I'm sure there are interpersonal conflicts. I luckily have managed to avoid them. But you know, in general, everyone has been so welcoming and so supportive of each other and engaging, and it's really refreshing and wonderful to be a part of, especially while the world is burning around us. The fact that so many of us are focused on putting more, you know, kindness and empathy and compassion into our world through our art, through this game, is pretty cool.
This design was a commission for a friend who wanted to give a set of dice to her husband for Valentine's Day, and I was really excited when she reached out, especially with the color scheme and the theme of the dice. My friend and her husband both play the Fairy King and Queen of the Spring Court at a lot of Ren fairs and in their free time at special events.
I had a friend who doesn't play D&D, whose best friend does play D&D and is obsessed with it at the same level that my other friends and I are at. She wanted to commission a D20 to give him as her way of asking him to be her maid of honor. So it was really cute. It was such a great experience. I mean, this friend is just, I love her and I love the other friend. They're very close to me too. So it was really cute working with her on that. We were both in the same organizations in college. And she had just very personal, cute little pieces about her friendship that she wanted incorporated with the design. So it was really cute. And then I posted it and he loved it. And that was another reel that did really well. People thought it was so cute. And it's experiences like that when like things get kind of challenging, make it worth doing. When people are like, hey, I love this. Can you make it again? Or, hey, I have this really cute idea. Like, can we partner together? And then you end up meeting more people and learning more about the community and the people you're working with. And it's really great.
My partner decided 3 months into our relationship, when they started GMing for me and my friends, now our friends, that they already knew they wanted to marry me and that this is how they wanted to do it. And they basically had me plan my proposal without knowing it, because they knew that the only way to have me not figure out what was going on, because I have excellent pattern recognition skills, was to have me distracted and planning a 1-year anniversary thank you for being our GM party for them, and being like, okay, how are we gonna get Shannon there? And Edie was like, okay, I'm on it. And then she would be talking to me and I'd be like, okay, so I just thought about it. What if we have Shannon come, because one of my best friends is a private chef. What if we have Shannon come and do like a Hobbit feast? And I was like, and the reason that I'll tell my partner that they're coming is that they want us to meet Olivia, their new girlfriend. And Edie would come back and she'd be like, guys, don't worry about it, Val's gone. Like, I planned everything. And then we get to there that day. Of course, neither of us are feeling well. I'm panicking because they're stressed. They're panicking because I don't feel well. Both of us are like, do we need to cancel? And both of us are like, no. Because obviously I know there's a surprise party. They know I'm getting proposed to later. So we're in our game. We're on a quest. We have to go get this thing. And I don't even realize they're dropping little hints about our first date in this whole thing. There's 2 axes on the wall. Our first date was axe throwing. We're going on this quest for this guy who wants this bracelet to bring back his wife, because I love stories where a guy is going crazy because he's trying to help his wife. Like, I love that stuff, right? So basically we get to this island. We have to go into this thing. and they're like, okay, we're gonna split up the party, you're gonna go in groups. So, oh, and by the way, your first name is May. This NPC's first name is May. So I'm gonna have, will you marry, no, they said, hang on, they said, I'm gonna have May, you, Will, and Mary. You guys are gonna be in one group. So on this group, you've got Will You Marry Me, and they pull out the ring. And they got the stupid surprise face because I forgot to say yes. I just started crying.
D&D always sadly had that kind of perception of, oh, if you played this, you're that nerd. Like, you would see typically in movies or other spaces where they're like, where the kid gets put into the locker because he gets played D&D and it's not cool, you know. And now it's really changed and it's become more culturally accepted. It's more seen to be fun. It's actually cool. It's something that everybody can do. It's not that whole nerdy way. There are many people now that I have dealt with as customers and or friends that you would have never thought would be into D&D, and they give it one try, and now they're playing tons of campaigns and they don't want to stop.
In the last couple of years, especially with the lockdown and everybody getting kind of really comfortable being remote with a lot of things, it's become way easier to make these connections. And I'm working on making dice for a friend of mine who is a librarian who is fighting against banned books out in the Midwest. And I'm hoping to get other dice makers involved and sending them a whole bunch of dice because he's utilizing D&D in the library as a therapeutic space and a processing space for students for all of the stuff that they're dealing with as kids growing up in this everything that's going on. I'm seeing that with friends who are therapists and helping their clients create. I have a friend who works primarily with traumatized youth, and they've been making characters with their clients as identity exploration practice and using D&D as therapeutic tools. In general, it's so wonderful to see how many folks are exploring their gender and exploring their sexuality and exploring different aspects of themselves through these games. And I never thought that that's what this community would be when I was in college. And I'm getting a little misty-eyed because I genuinely didn't see it coming. And for me to come back to the community after coming out, after figuring out who I was instead of trying to prove myself, and just being comfortable in who I am is a really magical experience.